Yo, YouTube. 3, 2, 1. YouTube. What the hell going on, my good people? What the hell going on? Hope y'all having a good day, blessed day, and all that good shit. All into the universe. We gonna spread positivity before we start talking shit in this video. But anyway, today I wanted to break it down, the full DX store, the full fraction. I said faction. I got started on 3, 2, 1. YouTube, man, what's good? What's going on? What the hell going on, good people? I hope y'all having a good day, good morning, good evening, good night out that motherfucker. And today we're gonna react to DX, the full faction documentary, D motherfucking X. Oh my god, them boys and gal used to clown. But before it was DX, you had the Click. I know, goddamn, the Click, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, X-Pac, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. Them the boys that was running stuff backstage. Them boys was running stuff backstage. But we ain't gonna talk about the Click. We're gonna talk about DX. Got China, got X-Pac, we got Billy Road Dogg, we got Billy Gunn, then of course Triple H, Shawn Michaels. Jesus Christ, they used to do some crazy stuff. They used to get a lot of people in trouble for doing the gesture and all that. But if you look at Triple H now, for the little older people, you look at Triple H now, what he became, and Shawn Michaels. I wish I could watch. I think I can watch a little Shawn Michaels, but I watched Shawn Michaels documentary. Man, I didn't know that man was like that. I didn't know that man was. Shawn Michaels was they said he was a bad man. They said he was a bad man, but he found God and did a whole 360. But anyway, we gonna hop to the video and see what the hell DX had going on, because them boys were crazy. Them boys was crazy back then.
In the late 90s, there were a few staple wrestling shirts you would see around the schoolyard. One popular one, of course, was Austin 316.
Shit, you had Stone Cold, you had The Rock, you had Mick Foley, you had NWO. Man, you had of course more, but like the most popular ones definitely was NWO, Rock, Austin, and DX. Well, NWO was for older people, I guess. So Austin, everybody was for Austin. I mean, kids like NWO, but Austin, Rock, DX.
Well, elsewhere, there was always plenty of NWO shirts going around too. Aside from these, though, perhaps the most popular of them all was D-Generation X. Yes, as everyone's favorite group of rebels,
Michael Cole
DX broke every rule and pressed every button that was in their reach, with this ultimately managing to capture the hearts of every teenage boy and girl that was watching as, whether it be in their first, second, third.
Yeah, I wanted to have Triple H. I want to have all of them got together and watch all the crazy shit that they did. I know that shit was crazy. That boy was crazy. They used to piss off management. They used to piss off everybody. Man, them folk were crazy.
But we loved it. Incarnations, they were always able to irritate the right people and come out on top in the process. So, with that said, for the thousands of attendants and the millions watching at home,
let's get ready to
take a deep dive into their entire career history and break it down, the D-Generation X story. Of course, it all starts with the Click. Yes, in the mid-90s, WWE's backstage area was pretty much run by 5 men. Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Triple H, and Sean Waltman. With these friends, who would collectively be known as the Click, regularly using their political power to get themselves the best spots on the card, all while burying those they didn't like. Come 1996, though, WWE's financial issues and the promises of big money contracts from Ted Turner would see 2 of them, Hall and Nash, jump ship, later to be joined by Waltman too, with this leaving the backstage power unit a shadow of what it once was, as now only HBK and the Game remain.
Paul Levesque.
And on top of that, by then having learned his lesson, Vince McMahon was doing everything he could to keep the remaining Click members apart. That was how, by 1997, Michaels was in a main event feud with Bret Hart.
And
while elsewhere,
if anybody know about their feud, they really hate each other guts. And I'm 100, they say they good now, but I'm quite sure Bret Hart been holding the grudge that long. He's still holding it. Every time he sees Shawn, I'm quite sure he want to punch Shawn in the face. But they probably good now. I highly doubt. Like I said, I highly doubt it because he screwed. He screwed Bret. But as they say, Bret screwed Bret. It's the craziest thing ever. But
on the card, far away from that,
and they was
Triple
dating.
H was working his way up the mid card, having just recently added a bodyguard to his act in the form of Chyna. But despite the boss's desires to keep the two apart, they still remained close friends behind the scenes. And given the considerable amount of power that HBK still had at this time, eventually he was able to convince McMahon to let the two unite on screen, with this first happening on the August 11th, 1997 episode of Raw, where the Game and Chyna would both interfere on the champ's match against Mankind, with the on-screen implication being that, as the Greenwich Blue Blood had already...
Mankind can be the only person I know can go in the Hall of Fame 4 times, 3 times. Mankind, Dude Love, and there's one more. Jesus Christ. Mankind, Dude Love. It's not coming to me. Why is it not coming to me? Cactus Jack. He can go in the Hall of Fame 3 goddamn times. Jesus, that's amazing work.
Been feuding with Foley at this point, the two heels had forged an alliance going forward. And soon after this, a 4th member would be added to the burgeoning Stable 2 in the form of Rick Rude, someone who was referred to as their insurance policy.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Who would watch from ringside as Shawn and Hunter teamed up together to take on Mankind
I do not
and The
remember
Undertaker. The latter being the man who the champ was about to face at the next pay-per-view, Ground Zero, in your house. Hell, even when the time for that latter match came, Triple H and Chyna would remain in their friend's corner, helping him throughout it as the whole thing ended up devolving into a brawl that was eventually called off as a no contest. Yes, the message was clear by now. If you messed with any one member of this new group, you messed with them all. And as the weeks went on and their beef with The Undertaker continued, they continued to get more over. All this despite being heels, as their crude brand of humor during interview segments and anti-authority attitude perfectly fit in with the late 90s culture of the anti-hero. In fact, it was reportedly after seeing a segment where the group had gone to the ring with rolled-up socks down their shorts that McMahon decided this was the direction the company needed to move into going forward, arguing then that their attitude was what the company needed. And it was also around this time that, while still feuding with the Dead Man, the group would make a brief detour, as HBK prepared for a European title match against the British Bulldog at the September 20th UK pay-per-view one night only. When that night came, though, despite the Bulldog having been told that he would be winning, and so subsequently dedicating the victory to his younger sister who was battling cancer at the time, bratty Michaels would end up getting the finish changed so that he could come out the champion instead, with this hugely angering pretty much everyone backstage, none more so than the Hart family themselves. Yes, by now, the real-life hatred between HBK and Bret Hart in particular had become so vitriolic that it...
Is that where it started from? Because, that is messed up, but is that where it started from? Like, that's what begun it all when he lost against when the British Bulldog lost against him in his hometown. That's messed up. That's messed up. His sister battling cancer and she wanted him to win and he lose. Oh, that's messed up. I'd be pissed too.
It seeped over into on-screen promo segments between the two. And while WWE, fully aware of the huge money match they still had in their pocket, tried to corral the two into settling things professionally in the ring, the new European champ would be forced to settle his beef with The Undertaker inside the first ever Hell in a Cell match, with this being specifically designed so as to stop Triple H, Chyna, and Rick Rude from interfering.
I don't remember
though, the surprise debut of Kane would see Michaels not only win that night, but become #1 contender to the WWE title in the process. So in the weeks that followed that, further barbs would be thrown back and forth between Michaels and Hart, with the Canadian at one point inadvertently coming up with the name of his rival's stable when he referred to them as degenerates during an interview segment. Taking this to heart then, the champ and his lackeys would begin calling themselves D-Generation X going forward, with the idea being that this was merely a branch of the clique, as along...
So Bret Hart came up with D-Generation X because he called him Degenerates. Hey, this shit started to make sense now. That was the best thing he come up with. He came up with it. But I didn't know Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels feud started with that. Hey, learn something every day.
Alongside the NWO over in WCW, the group of friends had been able to divide and subsequently conquer the entire wrestling industry. And, of course, if anyone else had a problem with it, they had 2 words for them.
Suck it!
That said, despite already being a controversial act by this point, come the November 9th, 1997 Survivor Series, things would reach an altogether different level when Michaels and Triple H colluded with Vince McMahon and a few key other players to screw Bret Hart out of the WWE title prior to him leaving for Ted Turner's company, with this incident
and I don't even think he stayed long
as the Montreal Screwjob. Now, we won't go into detail about
that's when Bret Hart told Vince McMahon, that when Bret Hart whooped Vince McMahon ass. I remember that. That's when he whooped his ass. And then Bret Hart used to whoop Shawn ass. So Bret Hart is really a fighter, huh?
Job
really knocking niggas out.
Because it's a story of its own, but suffice to say, it left DX and HBK in particular as not only the biggest heels in the company on screen to fans, but also to their colleagues behind the scenes. As while the champ would deny his involvement in the incident for years, few actually believed this to be true at the time. And as an added consequence of this, Rick Rude would quit the company in disgust too, with his forcing the now 3 remaining degenerates to capitalize on the monster heat they were receiving as the new WWE champion entered into a brief feud with Owen Hart, all while elsewhere, Triple H and Chyna were drawing the ire of WWE's on-screen commissioner, Sergeant Slaughter. Hell, at one point, Slaughter would even try to get one up on the heels by forcing them to face off against each other for the European title, which HBK still held, and pretty much gave him the title, reasoning that he never even wanted it in the first place. This being one last slap in the face
that
of the
was
British
when Triple
Bulldog
H
and the rest of the
ran back and forth on the ropes. Oh, I didn't know that. I wonder what the fuck he was doing. I see that meme all the time. Him just running back and forth on the ropes. Okay.
Hart Clan.
Okay.
Yes, it seemed like, given the boss was apparently willing to let them get away with murder, D-Generation X were going to be running WWE for the foreseeable future. That was until this leaving him pretty much immobile afterwards and unable to compete for the next 2 months.
He got a bow in his head.
And on top of that, it was on this very same show that another blow would come for the degenerates as Stone Cold Steve Austin, the man clearly being positioned as the next face of the company, would win the titular Royal Rumble match that night, with this giving him a shot at HBK's title at the upcoming WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's when Mike Tyson was in there. But Stone Cold won, what, three WrestleMania? Not 3 WrestleMania. 3 Royal Rumbles, if I'm not mistaken. He won 2 or 3. I think he won 2 back to back, and he won 1 more, if I'm not mistaken. I can't fully remember.
14. By now, though, unsure if he was ever even going to be able to get in the ring again, the champ spiraled deeper into drug addiction. Something he'd been struggling with for some time at that point, and which got so bad that Triple H basically had to start acting as his full-time carer, helping to get him cleaned up and ready before every on-screen appearance. In the end, however,
you gotta think. What the hell? You gotta think. Man, when you got everything in the palm of your hand and you got access to all the money you want, drugs and women come. Well, back then I know it was different. I love when older people come in on my stuff, let me know that the full extent of the story. Cause I don't know the full. Like I didn't know half of these. I didn't know that Bret Hart. I didn't know the Owen family. It really started when Bret Hart won the title from British Bulldog. I didn't know Bret Hart named them Degenerates, and that's where they came up to Generation X. Like, that's what I'm talking about. I didn't know that. But back then, I know drugs and stuff was just everywhere. But to be Shawn Michaels, oh shit, I know you getting that shit. He had everything in his disposal. He was getting it. And he was high during almost every match. Back then, man, I wonder how they fucking focused back then.
Despite the incredible amounts of pain he was in, HBK would get in the ring for WrestleMania 14, eventually dropping the title to Austin there despite concerns beforehand that he might go into business for himself. Still, after that, it was clear that he wasn't going to be able to wrestle again, and so, at just 32 years old, he would be forced to announce his retirement, with Triple H coming out the next night on Raw to tell fans that, while his friend may have dropped the ball, he was only too happy to pick it up, as going forward, he would be forming D-Generation X Mark II, with this one including himself, Chyna, the New Age Outlaws, and the surprise return of an old Click friend in Sean Waltman, now going by X-Pac. Yes, DX had been able to rise from the ashes, and now, with an army at his disposal, the game would lead the group into a feud with the Nation of Domination as they formally became
Nation of
babyfaces
Domination.
for the first
That
time.
D'Lo Brown in the
Their
corner,
sophomoric
that The
antics
Rock.
by then being too much for fans to not cheer anymore. Yes, it was during this period that DX would famously...
You gotta think, Nation of Domination. That was Ron Simmons, The Rock, and one more person. I'm missing one. I see it. Ron Simmons, D'Lo, Ron Simmons, D'Lo, The Rock, and it's one more. I can't think of the one more person. It's one more person. I know for sure it's one more person.
Invade a WCW show being held across the street from Raw on April 27th, 1998, driving a Jeep up to the doors of the building and demanding that they be let in, all while Triple H riled up the crowd of fans watching into admitting WCW sucked, accusing the company of being forced to give away free tickets so as to fill up the venue.
Damn.
And as if that wasn't enough, back in the ring, and the feud with the Nation was heating up even further, as the group of degenerates would lampoon them during a segment on the 26th episode of Raw, with them there each dressing up as a different member of the heel group and mocking them with cartoonish impressions. But while this segment was certainly popular at the time, it's one you're unlikely to see referenced on WWE TV today, given that it's become controversial in the years since for its use of blackface. That said, though, this was the climate of the time, with it being the era of South Park, and so crowds lapped it up as it was happening. And they lapped it up just as much when the game moved into a singles...
Bro, they dress as them, and they dress as them. What was the problem? Now, he could have, the blackface shit. I don't think he was thinking about that at the time, because everybody was making fun of everybody back then. But you know how today generation is, so, South Park wouldn't survive back then. South Park wouldn't survive now. I don't believe Dave Chappelle will survive now. Boondocks would definitely get canceled after one season. Like, it shows now that stuff back then would definitely not be going on now. Because, shit changed. Shit happens.
Feud with The Rock from there, with both men battling it out to see who would become the next top guy in the company. A battle that would ultimately see Triple H beat the Great One in a ladder match at that year's SummerSlam on August 30th. That said, though, it wasn't all rainbows for the fan favorites in 1998, as they would soon have to face a ghost from the past when Shawn Michaels returned to the company as the new on-screen commissioner, with him now acting as a foil to his former friends, making their life difficult at every turn. And as it happened, this adversarial relationship was also being mirrored off-screen as, by then, tired of dealing with HBK and his drug-addled behavior, the game would cut him out of his life for a period, with this severing their years-long friendship.
I remember them talking about that.
Adding to these woes, back on screen, DX would gradually begin to fall apart as they started to turn on each other and go their own separate ways throughout the course of 1999, with this all kicking off on January 25th of that year when China abandoned the group so as to join up with the corporation instead. Soon after this, it would be revealed that Triple H had once again returned to the dark side too when he turned on X-Pac at WrestleMania 15, there reuniting with the Ninth Wonder of the World once more as the two became a power couple within the corporation. And so now, with only 3 members left, X-Pac would try to recruit Kane into the stable so as to bolster up the ranks. This, however, was something that would be met with resistance from Billy Gunn, and as a result, in the weeks that followed, he would grow more and more frustrated with X-Pac, eventually attacking him on the March 2nd, 1999 episode of Sunday Night Heat and turning heel, as he from there went out on his own. So with only 2 now left standing, you would think it would have made sense for Waltman and Road Dogg to call it a day there and go their separate ways. In the end, though, rather than doing this, they chose to limp on for a while yet, acting as a tag team who desperately clung to the glory days of DX. But after a while, even this would run its course, with many from there expecting that the group was dead for good. That's why it came as such a surprise to those people then when, on October 25th of that year, the group would come back together once more, this time acting as full-blown villains as they helped the game to hold on to the WWE title that he just recently won.
You know that.
And further solidifying this heel turn, X-Pac would turn on his friend Kane at this point too, with this leading to the two feuding for the next couple of months as, elsewhere, the New Age Outlaws would return to the tag team division, all while Triple H segued into a feud with Vince McMahon himself, a feud that would soon see the game
when he married his daughter
by getting his daughter Stephanie drunk and then marrying her in a shotgun wedding in Vegas. Yes, despite Triple H and Chyna's real-life relationship being well publicized by that point, in storyline, the two would remain separate as the ninth wonder of the world was tactically left out of this version of DX, with this setting the stage for the WWE Champion to eventually reveal to the world that Stephanie had in fact been in on the whole thing all along, and that she had fallen in love with Triple H after seeing how he'd gone after her father, the very father who had tried to sacrifice her to The Undertaker earlier that same year. And as the months went on, this storyline relationship would become something else entirely, as it eventually blossomed into a real-life romance.
That is crazy. You left Chyna to date the head man daughter. Yeah, I know she was feeling some type way about that shit. I just know she was.
Ending up being the odd woman out in this love triangle, something which would contribute towards her exit from the company soon thereafter.
Damn.
Still, Stephanie wouldn't be the only female member of this version of DX, as she would soon be joined by X-Pac's new girlfriend Tori as well, the very same woman who had previously been storyline involved with Kane and who had recently turned on him as part of the Big Red Machine's still ongoing feud with Waltman. And so now, with the third incarnation fully formed, the Degenerates would find themselves flipping the script and acting as authority figures for the first time, with this role coming as a result of Triple H and Stephanie's power couple temporarily driving both Vince and Shane McMahon out of the company at the start of 2000. And as authority figures, DX would make life a living hell for every babyface on the roster, with them saving a particular level of wrath for Mick Foley, the man whom the game would feud with over the WWE title in January and February.
On the thumbtack.
When Vince and Shane returned in March, it wouldn't change the power dynamics much, as they would soon find themselves on the same side as the heels again, with this only serving to solidify DX's power even more, as they continued to reign strong as the top stable in the industry. And that was how it went for the first half of 2000 then, with the DX McMahon-Helmsley faction running things, helping to keep Triple H in the title picture with The Rock, while elsewhere, Stephanie McMahon was becoming the women's champion, and Road Dogg and X-Pac were returning to tag team action.
Stephanie McMahon was the women's champion? I can see that. Of course she was. I didn't know that. I don't think she won that many times. Stephanie McMahon didn't put herself, I feel like she didn't put herself in position to be a woman's champion, if that makes sense. Of course she was gonna win it. Her fucking dad is the goddamn owner, chairman, the fuck. But I don't think she wanted to be in that position, if that makes sense. Stephanie was a great heel.
Bumps in the road for the group, like when Billy Gunn was ousted after suffering an injury that took him out of action for a while. But aside from that, the future looked bright for the corporate degenerates. Unfortunately, though, as with all good things, it would have to come to an end eventually. And this would happen in the summer of that year when Road Dogg and X-Pac, frustrated with their lack of success as a team, turned on each other prior to SummerSlam, with this situation ending up leading to a match between
they still
got
on. They still got on the bullshit. Like, why they still got this on? They still got jerseys on and green shit. What the hell they doing?
As they both from there broke away from the group. But this didn't really matter to Triple H anymore because he, by then, no longer needed them, as he'd become one of the top stars in the industry on his own merits, with this being somewhere he would remain for the rest of his career.
Yep.
And so, aside from one more brief team-up to take on the Radicals on the November 6th episode of Raw later that year, that would be it for the stable, all until
then Shawn Michaels retired,
yeah. By which point, one of the OG members of the group, Shawn Michaels, would have returned from his career-ending injury. Yes, a couple of years prior to this fourth reunion, HBK would have made his return to the ring, his back injury having had time to heal up during his time away. And upon his return then, a tease of a DX revival with his old friend Triple H would immediately be hinted at, with the two having mended fences in real life by now.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, at that point, the storyline would see the two feud together for a while.
He was fucked up, man, doing drugs and shit. He was messed up. He had to find himself, because he would have... Ain't no telling what he would have been if Triple H didn't help that man. That shit look real as hell. I wonder, it can't be real because he fucked up. He fucked up.
Well, instead, having one of the best matches in WWE history at SummerSlam 2002 in the process. That said, come 2006, it looked like it was finally going to be on, as at WrestleMania 22 in April of that year, both men would perform crotch chops during the respective matches, with them from there increasingly being interlinked on screen again, as finding a common enemy in the McMahons, they eventually decided it was time to return to the glories of the past, as on the June 12th episode of Raw, they would formally reunite once more, taking on the Boss's hired guns, the Spirit Squad, in a 5-on-2 handicap match at June 25th's Vengeance. But despite the excitement of seeing the duo back together again, fans who enjoyed the stable's shock jock antics of the 90s were ultimately left somewhat disappointed when it became clear that by now, as well as Michaels' born-again Christian beliefs.
Yep.
And while some older fans would criticize this new iteration of the once outrageous stable for these reasons, a lot of kids would get introduced to them for the first time here too, with this ending up being their version of DX.
Man out there taking all
Even
type
Triple
of pain.
H, who by then was a real-life member of the McMahon family, the irony of which wasn't lost on him as he would playfully play this up in his promos, argued that there was no way they could ever go back to being the braggadocious couple of kids they'd been in the 90s because they were by now pushing 40 and simply weren't those people anymore. So with that in mind then, the fourth iteration of DX would see much more cartoon.
I often say, yeah, the fourth one was probably one of the best ones that I seen. Of course, I can't remember the 90s because I was just fucking born then. But yeah, they were doing some funny shit then. They were doing some funny shit. He was doing the shave at bad thing. Triple H hitting him and falling. That shit was funny. That shit was hilarious.
Like antics, as the duo repeatedly made fools of Vince and Shane. As well as that, they would have a notable feud against Rated RKO, with the elder statesman here helping to get Edge and Randy Orton over to another level. That said, though, as time went on and both men would take sabbaticals from TV at various points, the focus became less and less on DX and more on their singles actions once again, with this being something that was especially noticeable when HBK became intent on ending The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak in 2009 and 2010, so much so that he would even put his own career on the line. And when Shawn was ultimately unable to do this, being forced to retire as a result, Triple H, in one last show of solidarity to his friend, would spend the next 2 years trying to beat the dead man too, with all this climaxing in the Hell in a Cell end of an era match at WrestleMania 28, which saw Michaels even act as a special guest referee. After that night, though, realizing he was unable to beat The Undertaker, the game would move on to other things as the Heartbreak Kid settled into retirement. And well, from there would be the occasional one-night reunions, such as the time Michaels returned at Raw 1000 on July 23rd, 2012, calling out Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, and X-Pac as all 5 members, Triple H included, celebrated in the ring. It was clear that the days of DX...
That was about the last time all 5 of them got together, ain't it? Or they got together one more time. I think they got together again when, like, in a Raw ring. I know they got together again, probably... I can't remember, but I know they got together again because they were talking about Triple H said the old man will buy that crap company and he'll fire you again. I remember that.
As an active stable were done, and that anything else that happened with it now was going to be an exercise in nostalgia. Still, it was a nice piece of nostalgia regardless, and one that WWE would only be too happy to play up whenever they needed to pop a quick rating going forward. Hell, at one point, the company would even convince Triple H and HBK to get in the ring one more time when Michaels came out of retirement for one night at November 2nd, 2018's Crown Jewel.
Don't remind me of this
shit.
About
that one, the better. No, the best thing to do is to remember DX for what it was across its various incarnations, one of the best and most influential wrestling stables of all time. Yes, whether it be the original collective of bratty heels, the later faction of fun-loving babyfaces, the authority figures of the McMahon-Helmsley era, or the middle-aged goofballs of the mid-2000s, D-Generation X will always remain one of the best things about WWE. And if you're not down with that...
Got 2 words for you. Suck it. Yeah, that video was good. Definitely learned some stuff in this video that I didn't know. I'm quite sure there's way more to that than they put in the video, but they're gonna put so much. So, hey, if I'm leaving out some stuff, or like I said, I love when older people give me more glimpse on stuff, because in the 90s, it's raining. In the 90s, I think you said like 98. Shit, I was born 94, so I remember the stuff, but I wasn't there in the moment. So, hey, if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, share. Peace.